Ladies and gentlemen, this is our pro wrestling show, Talk to and Wrestling. And tonight we are going to talk about one of the biggest, huge questions asked in pro wrestling. Who killed WCW? Who killed it? Stay tuned. We're going to give our opinion who did it right here on Talk to and Wrestling. All right, man, we're going to thank you guys for being here with us on this Thursday night, wherever in the world you are sitting at right now. We are the Real Sports Podcast. And again, this is Talk to and Wrestling. This is our pro wrestling show where we will discuss the past, present, and future of professional wrestling. Wrestling is what we call it down south. Wrestling, professional wrestling. But I'm here, man. I'm here with two genius minds in pro wrestling. I mean, these two guys right here, boy, you just sit back and just, I'm going to sit back tonight and just listen. Because we're going to figure out who in the hell killed the organization that was called World Championship Wrestling. We got Rockstar Rock in the building. Rockstar Rock in the building.
How everybody doing on this Thursday night?
Yes, sir, Rockstar. Yes, sir. And Mr. Young Mark.
Hey, man, let's go ahead and get into it, man. A little self-high five to discover who killed WCW.
Look
Free
at
that song, man. This is one of the greatest wrestling theme songs of all time. Free
Tell
it,
it,
man.
Mark.
Free it.
Is that no?
Yeah, it was very similar to Smells Like Teen Spirit, but it's completely different.
Self high five.
Bang. If I would have been in WCW back in the day, DDP would have been my guy, yo.
Oh man, everybody back in the day used to be in the hallway like this. If you ain't doing DX, you're doing a diamond.
Yep.
Bam. In the
Trying to
pyro.
hit the diamond cutter on somebody.
Yeah, DDP was awesome. He was just great. DDP was great. God, man. All right, man. So, who killed WCW? And you can also catch that on what channel is that again, Mark?
So it's Who Killed WCW is a 4-part documentary series on the Vice TV channel. If you haven't seen it yet, it comes on Wednesdays at 10. This coming Wednesday is going to be the finale of it. The first episode of it's on YouTube, on Vice's YouTube channel. Go check it out. Or you can watch it on demand on Hulu.
Or you can check us out. That's more important. Let's get into this thing. Let's start off with the origin, how this thing started, shall we? World Championship Wrestling, better known as WCW, was an American professional wrestling promotion founded by Ted Turner in 1988. And after Turner Broadcasting System, through a name Universal Wrestling Corporation, purchased the assets of National Wrestling Alliance, better known as NWA, territory, Jim Crockett Promotions, which is called JCP, which had aired its programming on TBS. We'll read this, and then we're going to get out of here. For all of its existence, WCW is one of the two top professional wrestling promotions in the United States, alongside the World Wrestling Federation at the time, and it is now WWE, at one point surpassing the latter in terms of popularity. After initial success through utilization of established wrestling stars of the 1980s, the company appointed Eric Bischoff to executive producer of television in 1993. Under Bischoff's leadership, the company enjoyed a period of mainstream success characterized by a shift to reality-based storylines, and notable hirings of former WWF talent. WCW also gained attention for developing a popular cruiserweight division, which showcased an acrobatic, fast-paced, lucha libre-inspired style of wrestling. In 1995, WCW debuted their live flagship television program, Monday Nitro, and subsequently developed a ratings competition against the flagship program of the World Wrestling Federation, Monday Night Raw, in a period now known as the Monday Night War. From 1996 to 1998, WCW surpassed their rival program in the ratings of 83 weeks. In the beginning of 1999, WCW endured significant losses in ratings and revenue due to creative missteps and suffered from the fallout from the 2001 merger of American Online and Turner Broadcasting parent Time Warner, later Warner Media, now known as Warner Brothers Discovery. Soon thereafter, WCW was shut down and the WWF purchased select WCW assets in 2001, including its video library, intellectual property, including the WCW name and championships, and some wrestler contracts. The corporation, which was retained to deal with legal obligations and reverted to the Universal Wrestling Corporation name, officially became defunct in 2017. Its headquarters is located in Smyrna, Georgia. Now, get all that. That's where it started. So this is where we at now, because of course WCW folded like a wallet in 2001. So now, gumshoes, detectives. My question. Let's start off with Rockstar Rock, because I know he got a lot to say. Who started off? Who killed? Who do you think, Rock, killed World Championship Wrestling?
I'm gonna go with three people.
Okay.
Obviously, the people within Turner, the people with the higher ups within Turner, because watching the show, those people they necessarily never wanted a wrestling show on their network, on TBS or TNT. It was all Ted Turner that was the biggest fan of pro wrestling. He wanted pro wrestling to be on television. And he seen what Vince McMahon was doing with his territories with WWF/WWE at that going into the new generation at that time. So I believe it was some of the people that was in the higher ups that did it as well. Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's not even in the documentary. The Rock made this show, and one of the biggest athletes wrestling athletes that came from the conglomerate of the global conglomerate of WWE to WCW is not even in the documentary. He doesn't even say anything. I mean, they show videos of promos and things of that nature that he did towards the down slide of WCW thing. Mm-hmm. Down towards the downslide of WCW. Mm-hmm. But I think Hogan killed it because him and Bischoff, he gave Hogan full creative control over his matches.
Very true.
So that means Hogan didn't have to drop the title if he didn't want to.
If
he wanted the title, after dropping it for a while, they had to give him a belt. So I believe he had a big reasoning in what killed it. And the fact is that they didn't manage the talent that they had at the right moments. Like God rest his soul, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, the Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn's, the Mysterios, the Luchadors. They kept them as mid-carders. And even Booker T. Like, it was like Booker T should have held the WCW title long before the ending of the company. Like, if you really look at the last years within the 2000, 2001 era when Booker T was the champion, that's when people really started to like tune back into WCW. Because we wrote it off. Like we kept saying Hogan with the title, then we turned around, Sting had it, then Jeff Jarrett would have it. I mean, then but once Jeff Jarrett and Booker T started that feud for the title, and then you seen Scott Steiner initiated in that Booker T feud, it kind of brought a little bit of different feel for television, because Scott Steiner, people was wanting to tune in to see what Scott Steiner was doing, because he was doing off the wall promos, and things of that nature.
Off the wall.
Booker T was just a solid worker that deserved the title back when they were still like beating WWE in the ratings, or towards the time that where they could have put the belt on them to see how things was going, because WWE didn't slack from putting the title on a black athlete. The Rock held the title during their best years of beating WCW. Booker T could have held the title because he had fans. People didn't think he was going to be that great leaving a tag team. But if you looked at the tag team, everybody knows when you look at a tag team, it's one athlete, it's one superstar in every tag team that you can say, okay, if this guy make it on his own, we know the other members not going to be as well as his stock ain't going to rise as his partner. Scott Steiner's stock risen after him and Rick Steiner departed. But Rick Steiner still had a solid singles career because Rick Steiner would put on some matches.
That's
but
true.
When you're looking at the situation with Booker T and Stevie Ray, everybody knew who the one that was the star was. It was Booker T, the athletic ability, the spin wheel kicks, the drop kick off the top rope. He brought all that athleticism for a dude for a brother that was his height. And, especially being a black athlete, all of us, I was hoping Booker T got the title, like during that era when they put him in, like they made this man as G.I. Bro. Like that was the worst.
Ed Ferrara.
Was the worst gimmick ever he had.
That was Ed Ferrara.
He stayed true to himself, and he's the hidden gem that made it in WWE that left WCW. All the other guys that left WCW that came to WWE, they came there and they got buried. Booker T was the only one that didn't get buried. If you look at it,
Eddie and Chris ain't get buried.
Huh?
Both Chris. Eddie, Chris Jericho and Benoit, they ain't get buried.
Yeah, but they left before the ship went under.
I see what you mean.
WWE brought those people like Sting, Goldberg, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall and them. They were sitting at home getting paid before Vince decided to bring the NWO in and bring Goldberg in. And look, Sting never showed up to WWE for years. So and
let me say something about that Booker T guy, because you're so right, Rock. Booker T made that WCW television title relevant with the matches he put on with Chris Benoit. Take my money. So those matches was off the chain. I agree with Rock, man. He was molded to be. He should have been for WCW.
Yeah, you got to. Sometimes you got to strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah, with the hot. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
That's the thing that I would say. That's why Vince McMahon was a genius at what he did, because he struck when the iron was hot. He took it to a level that Ted Turner and them didn't want to take it to a level when it came to really competing for the ratings within the Attitude Era. In the show, it says that like they was like, yeah, we had to water down our product because Ted Turner and the executives was like, okay, what WWE's doing, that's too raunchy for our family network. And Eric Bischoff and them was saying, but hey, that's what's winning. We have to do that in order to keep beating them. Like, we can't go back to what we was doing, the mom and pop wrestling show where, the diversity of the fans was just predominantly Caucasian Southern fans, to where as though once the NWO came, you seen more of us, a different diversity in there. So, but I'm not gonna hold it up. I'm gonna let Mark get his piece in. I know he,
Come on, Mark.
So
Who
this
killed WCW? Who you think killed?
Well, this is interesting because to add some context to the conversation, Rock was a young wrestling fan while the Monday Night Wars were going on. Host was a young adult, like a fully grown wrestling fan while this was going on. Me, I came into wrestling after WCW had already gone out of business, and I had never watched an episode of Nitro. I had never seen a WCW match. So going into this documentary, all I knew about WCW was from the WWE produced documentaries that didn't really dive into why they failed, but more so celebrated WWE's triumph and all of this.
Mhm.
So as I'm watching this documentary, I'm watching it and I feel like a juror on the O.J. Simpson trial or something. Like everybody's making their arguments, making their case, and it's about time for me to make a decision on who I think committed the crime. But prior to this documentary, I would have said Vince Russo, number one, because that's always been the proverbial uh, knock against WCW was that when they hired Vince Russo, everything went to hell,
Yeah,
and
he
that's what
did.
caused WWE to overtake them in the ratings and win. But after watching the first 3 episodes of the documentary, low key, I feel like Vince Russo gets more rap than he should. I actually don't think he's guilty in this case of killing WCW, but 3 episodes in, the common culprit for me is the Turner networks. Just because like what T Rock hit on, they never wanted wrestling in the first place. They did everything they could to sabotage WCW and to prevent them from becoming the success that they did. And even still, they didn't want to fully support it, even though it was bringing in huge ratings and it was doing all these great things. And they just never wanted it. And I'm even more supported and blaming this on the Turner networks because I grew up a huge ECW fan because I love Rob Van Dam. And anytime you watch an ECW documentary, you always go back to that shoot promo Paul Heyman did on ECW where he called out the network. Well, at that time, what TV network was ECW on? TNN, which is a
Mhm.
part of the Turner organization.
That's right.
So seeing how they did ECW dirty, and then now watching this WCW documentary, seeing how they did WCW so dirty, I think that the blood is all in the hands of Turner because they made the decisions that killed the company, like expanding the show to include Thunder. That was a Turner initiative. That wasn't something that Eric wanted. Wasn't something anybody in the company wanted. Bringing in Vince Russo was a Turner move. When they hired a
Mhm.
new president over WCW, that was one of the first moves he made after he fired Eric Bischoff. And even still, when they brought Vince Russo in, apparently there was some type of issue where he wasn't getting paid like he was supposed to. So he went home for 3 months.
Mhm.
So they really had nobody running the ship. So no
Kevin
matter
Nash is
which
the
way,
booker.
right, it's like no matter which way you slice it, all roads kind of point back to Turner as being the reason that WCW is no longer here today. So I
Mhm.
blame Turner.
I'm going to blame. I'm gonna. None of this is wrong at all, but I really think Eric Bischoff had a major part in this thing because man, oh man, did WCW cater to Hulk Hogan. Me and Rock was talking about this earlier. How WCW allowed Hulk Hogan to do whatever the hell he wanted. He, as Rock stated earlier, man, that he only lost maybe a good 3, 4, maybe times his whole tenure in WCW. He came in '94, came in red, yellow, immediately took the title. He beat the Giant, he beat Luger, he beat Flair countless times. He beat Vader. Like he was just beating everybody, and it was just ridiculous because at the time, that 94, man, we was already done with Hogan. And they think he was going to go down south and try to revamp him up. And they gave him everything because he was, the biggest star in wrestling. And man, they gave him the moon, the stars above, man. And they kept him with they put the title on him, of course. He had creative. He had creative power. Like if Hulk didn't agree with it, it's not gonna happen. I think it was too much, man, and it really killed WCW. Now WCW, they had great moments by bringing, of course, the NWO, Hogan's heel turn '96. It changed wrestling. The Outsiders first with Razor, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, that changed, and then it really changed when Bash at the Beach '96 when Hogan became heel and they did the formation of the NWO, of course. And throughout the years it was successful, and now it gets to Mark what he said about Vince Russo. I remember just as a fan, man, I used to just watch it. I'm like, yo, and I started, ladies and gentlemen, NWA. I started with Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA, Sting, Luger.
Talk about it.
Totally.
Talk about it.
Shoot, Barry Windham. Like, I mean, come on, man. I started with that and to watch it as it
Wahoo
McDaniel with the black dye. Ugh. And and Larry Sabisco. Man, just see it go from NWA to WCW where it really got cheesy when Jim Herd came in there. It was just, you got the ding dongs he brung in.
Wasn't the Shockmaster during his reign?
The Shockmaster came in '93 on Flair for the Gold. Flair had his own segment, and it was Flair for the Gold. It was called Flair for the Gold, and that's when the Shockmaster came in. He tag teamed with British Bulldog and Sting. That was
the wheel at Halloween Havoc.
Oh,
the spin the wheel at Halloween Havoc. The
Jim Herd.
So that was a WCW invention?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When Jake the Snake for Sting, they had to roll a wheel around on Halloween.
I do you one better. The Thunderdome, the Thunder Cage. Doolittle the Butcher got shocked, and the loser had, if you put your
had to get electrocuted. Yeah, and Doolittle the Butcher got electrocuted.
You had to get electrocuted. A Doolittle the Butcher got electrocuted. Terrible.
Yes.
Mark, look it up, Mark. It's terrible.
They briefly showed a clip of that in the opening part of the documentary, but they kind of skipped the pre-Eric Bischoff days of the company and just kind of went
Jim Herd. They buried
straight when he was in there. Yeah.
You got no choice but to bury him. He wanted to cut, and you probably heard it. You guys and wrestling fans out there, you guys heard this before.
Spartacus.
He wanted to cut Ric Flair's hair. Are you kidding me? The greatest of all time, you want to cut his hair? Spartacus, really? But he came in with what's his name? Big Josh. I remember that, Big Josh, because he had a bear, a real life bear, and he came to the ring. That was Billy Jack Haynes. Billy Jack Haynes. Those of you wrestling fans that know Billy Jack Haynes, he's from the Portland territory.
What you know about Portland, host?
The Full Nelson. He invented the Full Nelson. What you say?
What you know about the Portland territory, man?
Oh man, I know the Bushwhackers, Roddy Piper.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. I've been around the world now. Yeah.
I will say that one thing that I loved about WCW was they invented Fall Brawl, the War Games that we had in WWE that they now use and have every Survivor Series. What else? The Lethal Lottery. I don't know if y'all heard about the Lethal Lottery, the Battle Bowl for the Battle Bowl ring.
The Battle Bowl was trash, though.
Yeah. And World War III, they took it up a notch with their Battle Royal. They had a 60-man 3-ring Battle Royal.
Yeah, that was
which would allow every wrestler in the promotion to at least strive on that one night to try for a title. You knew some of the guys weren't going to win.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you're talking about this, Rock, because we can hit on the good points as well of WCW and all, respect to Dusty Rhodes, man, the genius mind of Dusty. Starcade. If it weren't for Dusty, we would have never heard of Great American Bash. He created that.
That's true. It's absolutely true.
Man, he created that. Dusty Rhodes, man. He was a booker for a long time. Oh man, Jesus. But
it's like I can remember they pay-per-views by season. Like Super Brawl was always happening in February.
That was their biggest. Yep, that was their biggest.
Starcade would be in December. They would have Spring Stampede in March or April. Then Bash at the Beach would be in July, and Great American Bash would be in June. Whatnot.
Yeah. Great American Bash was in July. It was in July.
Huh?
Great American Bash was in July.
Okay, yeah. I know it used to be in one of the, like they used to have like Bash at the Beach in July or Great American Bash in June, or switch it up. However, I don't think they had a pay. Did they have a pay-per-view for August? In the month of August, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Matter of fact, Clash of the Champions will be in August because that would be
But that was free.
That would be their free pay-per-view that they would show on TBS.
That's right. And I used to love it too.
I remember a lot of the season pay-per-views that WCW had, Slamboree, all the, some of the good pay-per-views that they had.
What got me about WCW, what I liked was Halloween Havoc and the entrance of it. Mm-hmm. That was, I think they did a great job as for their entrances, entrance themes for each show. The World Wrestling Federation was also good at it back in the day too, in the 90s. What was it? What was it with the cars? It was like Cars Crash. Forgot what pay-per-view. I'm gonna say Over the Limit. Something like that. But yeah, both organizations had great entrances for their
I think it was that one pay-per-view they had with they promoted Randy Orton as a champion, right? You talking about when they had the cars crashing against each other?
Yeah. That was hot as hell. That was hot. Yeah. So the great things about it. So with the
Fast Lane, right? Wasn't it
Fast Lane? That's what it was. Fast Lane. That's what it was. Fast Lane. So with the WCW, as it went on through the years, the NWO, the greatest thing that ever happened to WCW was the formation of the NWO, and of course it started in '96 at Bash at the Beach when Hogan came in. He leg dropped Macho Man, shocked the world. From '96 and I think all the way to the NWO had it. '96 and '97 was like the best year of the NWO. That's when they started getting chaotic and everybody was joining the NWO, and then the NWO get their own pay-per-view. And I think that's when things really started to dwindle, because now Bischoff is starting to get the lead in the ratings because of the NWO, because NWO made wrestling cool. So it pushed Vince McMahon to push the buttons and to go past the barrier. So you guys want to hit on that? I know, Mark. I know '97. I know you was Mrs. Foley, baby boy. I know, but you're a historian. You're a historian of pro wrestling. Give your take on the '90s, the NWO era.
It was the shot in the arm that wrestling kind of needed at the time, just because of how bad things had been prior. Both in WCW, like we mentioned, like the Shockmaster and Abdullah the Butcher and all that good stuff, and also the WWE as well. Isaac Yankem and dudes, all these silly like occupational gimmicks like
Skinner,
Plumber, the Gobbledygoobler, and all that crazy stuff. So it become so watered down and so cartoonish that it was just boring to watch. So then to have that breath of fresh air coming through in the form of Eric Bischoff and his reality-based storylines, like would being a young man in the world, or especially a young man in America, you want to watch, I Love You and you love me, or do you want to watch an action movie? You know what I mean? So WCW appealed to that, and they ran with it with the NWO. And
Man.
I think had it not been for Eric Bischoff and like his new vision being an outsider of the wrestling industry, because he was really the first outsider, if I can remember correctly, that found success in wrestling, not having grown up in the business, not being smartened up to it, or coming from the old territory days. So his outside point of view was really what the wrestling world needed. So yeah, it's crazy to think, would wrestling even still be around to this day had we not had, the NWO? Would we have gotten Bullet Club down the line? We've gotten the Shield? We have seen the rise of other companies like Ring of Honor and ROH and TNA and AEW without Eric Bischoff changing the wrestling world as we knew it with the NWO.
He did. I'm glad you said that too, Mark, because Eric Bischoff needs to get praised for the things that he did do right. He brought in Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, and that's the ultimate time, because those two was battling in the NBA Finals against each other. So that was just awesome. And then you had your hottest babyface team up with him, was DDP at the time, and then you had the hottest, exactly. You had the hottest heel, Hollywood Hogan with Dennis Rodman. So I mean, that was just perfect. So Bischoff did do that. But Rock, you remember the downfall? Give me the downfall of David Arquette becoming the WCW champion.
Yeah. I don't like, they showed on the show as well. The last part they was talking about that is about David Arquette winning the title, and DDP was totally against it. He was the champ at the time, but they felt as though that it was going to bring more eyes on the product based off of the movie Ready to Rumble and whatnot. That movie that was coming out that had the WCW stars in the movie. The one thing I would say, it was a big slap in the face, because of the simple fact is they should have listened to their talent when they told them, nah, that's a bad idea, because they ruined the credibility of the World Heavyweight title, the WCW World Heavyweight title. All the greats that sacrificed to have that title, to bring that title to, you know what I'm saying? It's like in one day they threw everything that Ric Flair built that title for down the drain with giving it to David Arquette. And David Arquette didn't even want the title. He said, no, guys like Booker T deserve it. And that's why I was saying that. That's what made me say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Production. Pre-show whatnot, pre-show meeting about Booker T, because he was one of those guys that deserved it, and they looked at David Arquette as just a high dollar, a few extra dollars in their pocket, and it didn't work. It backfired on them. A lot of different wrestlers was upset about it. It just felt like, okay, if y'all gonna give this guy the title, who else y'all gonna give a title to? And you know what I'm saying? So it just went downhill from there. And I think what it was is the fact that when Eric Bischoff made those deals and things of that nature, he didn't think about the back end of how he was going to keep it being successful, because eventually those guys were going to get old, but they wasn't going to release they spots just off of, okay, you're old now. No, we got contracts.
Right.
Eric Bischoff is honoring our contract. We're going to keep the talent the way where they are. And he did some good things for the company. I will say that. He brought a lot of good things to the company, but I think that the thing that really messed everything up is when they did bring Vince Russo in, because when Vince Russo was in WWE, Vince McMahon, the head Vince of the company, was overseeing all his bad ideas.
Yeah,
he didn't have nobody to sit there and tell him, no, that wasn't a good idea, until they brought Eric Bischoff back. I'm on my podcast, boy.
Yeah, but they didn't even make that clear to Vince Russo that Bischoff was kind of like the person
he was gonna be
above
head
him.
of, he was gonna be overseeing what Vince Russo. If Vince Russo put a script together and for the show and it sucked, Eric Bischoff was the guy telling him, "Nah, we got to do something else." And they didn't tell Vince Russo that Eric Bischoff was supposed to oversee him. So it was a lot of just a little like no transparency per se within that.
So you're saying in the World Wrestling Federation, it was more disciplined than how the WCW was, right? That's what you're basically saying. Eric Bischoff gave his wrestlers free range to do more.
You never. Okay. That's one thing Kevin Nash said. You never give the worst thing you do in professional wrestling is give a guy creative control. Because what are you gonna do when he says, "Nah, I don't want it"? It's in his contract, so y'all gotta honor the man's contract or get sued. So you know, like he would say, Hogan would come in at 30 minutes before the show and say, "Nah, I don't want to do this."
And that's where I think another downfall of the company came in was you had these dudes from outside of the wrestling business giving power to the wrestlers, and they're not being like one higher power, for lack of a better term, who was the leader in all this and who had the ability to say yay or nay. And I bring that up like from outside the business. I bring it up again because any traditional wrestler from, especially back in the territory NWA days, they know, you're going to have a run with the title. Yeah, you're going to have a run on top, but it's all about the promoting the health of the business, the protecting the future of the wrestling business. So you did what you had to do.
Protect the brand at all costs.
Right. You did what you had to do to put the next guy over to make sure that the business could keep going and keep thriving.
Yeah.
If Harley Race would have had creative control, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have wanted to drop the title to Ric Flair in the Greensboro Coliseum. But he did it to protect the future of the business. He did what he was supposed to do. Yeah. Hogan never had to grind through any of that, because right when he got his feet wet in the business, he got pulled by Vince McMahon and put straight on the top of the pedestal and had him, in my opinion, had his head a lot bigger than it probably should have been. Yeah. But had he have gone through, the territory days, like gone to like Portland or Mid-South or something like that, I don't think his ego would have ran as wild as it did, no pun intended, throughout the rest of the wrestling history. So I think that was one of the things that probably hurt that company a lot towards the end. Had they had some traditional wrestling heads in there who would paid their dues and gone through that whole sort of system, I think things would have been different.
I think Hogan had a small stint in like AWA, because I think he beat Nick Bockwinkel for the title in AWA. So he was at another territory.
In championship wrestling from Florida, and he had a little stint in AWA. But right when he was getting going in those days is when Vince was starting his coup of the wrestling industry.
Vince pushed him to the top to be you're right, he pushed him to the top to be Iron Sheik, because Iron Sheik was holding the belt for a long time. He's beating every American and at that time.
Hogan never had to go through the ordeals that Harley Race and Ric Flair, who Ho said is the greatest of all time, or even somebody like Harley Race, Ric Flair, those guys had to go through the grind of the territories, and Hogan never really had to do that.
The Buddy Rogers of the world, so like
Kevin Nash never had to go through it, and it kind of showed. But that's
I would say this,
right?
Hall and Nash, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, God rest Hall's soul, whatnot. They went through a different. They went through what you said that Hogan didn't go through. They had to go through different territories. They had to go through different gimmicks to see what worked, what didn't, in order for them to actually, at the end of the day, they got to be themselves when they came back to WCW, something that they couldn't do when they first was there. Like, I think Kevin Nash had like so many different gimmicks in WCW. And
yes, he did. He was a master. He was a master blaster, and he was Oz.
Yeah,
and Vinny Vegas.
Yeah,
even still, I saw it different from what I'm referring to. Like they got into the business when it was primarily WWE and WCW. They didn't have to get on a plane or get on a train and work a weekend in Charlotte and then go work another weekend in Louisiana and like go through that grind to really appreciate the wrestling business, in my opinion. I don't know either of those men, you know what I'm saying? They're grown men. They were they're light years ahead of me in terms of wrestling, but just I don't know, I'm kind of an old school purist a little bit, where I feel like the dudes who went through wrestling in the 70s and in the 80s, they have a different appreciation for it than guys who came through in the 90s. The one exception to that rule, and I'm so thankful that he was an exception to, is Triple H. Like Triple H really understood the lineage and the history of wrestling and understood what it meant to protect the business. Bret Hart, being the son of a wrestling promoter, coming from Stampede Wrestling in Canada, he got it. But some of those other guys that didn't have to go through that, they just didn't get it. And as we saw, those egos just got
I get what you're saying. The guys that knew what it took to pay dues and whatnot. I mean, some of them, I don't know if you've seen the Scott Hall documentary. Scott Hall was in AWA, and he was wrestling in the Florida promotion before he got scouted by DDP to come in WCW. So I mean, he had a different dude. He paid his dues differently than Kevin Nash. And be honest with you, Scott Hall was actually the brainchild of the NWO. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of the ideas, the promos, what they thought about doing, that all came from Scott Hall. Like, he was the reason that we got the Crow Sting.
Yeah.
Because Sting was trying to figure out how was he going to be able to change. And Scott Hall was like, hey, won't you think about what he showed him the movie of the Crow, and he said, won't you do this? And they said Sting was all for it. And it was the best thing. Like, for you to have a guy that was so in tune with the business from the ins and outs, to be able to have like different creative mindset like that for other athletes, that it went a long way. Like, I'm surprised they didn't make Scott Hall a booker instead of Kevin Nash when WCW needed to, because he already had the brains for the creative to put other superstars in a position to somewhat succeed. I don't think, Kevin Nash, he didn't have the booker mentality, the creative, to really carry it on. He had the sense of, probably from a business aspect, people liked him. So that's why they put him there. But if WCW was really smart when Eric Bischoff went away, they would have kind of talked to Kevin. They would have talked to Scott Hall, kind of see where his mindset was. Because, at that time he was he probably was in a bad place and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But I think he would have done a better job at booking than Kevin Nash, because his creative mindset was just off the charts. Like,
his experience.
His
experience. I think with WCW, and I hate to jump back to the old school, man, but the NWA was booked so perfectly. Like, you had great feuds, of course, with Dusty and the Four Horsemen, Nikita Koloff, Magdal Vachon. The list goes on and on. If they would have brought some of that into World Championship Wrestling and continue that on, man, they and still had that edgy. I think WCW would still be here to this day if they would have done that. Bring some of the booking, because back then it was Dusty and then it was Flair. Then you had Kevin Sullivan, who was a booker. Kevin Sullivan
looked bad, yo.
Yeah, he was bad at it.
Yeah, they made him look terrible.
It's crazy, because if you think about the best rivalries in WCW, like, majority of their rivalries came through the mid card. Some of their best rivalries was the mid card. I think the best main event rivalry in WCW history is probably Flair and Sting. But if you want to look at their mid-card rivalries, like you had Steamboat and Stunning Steve Austin when Austin was dead. Like even though they didn't push Austin, he didn't have the mentality to be pushed at that time. I would say, or he didn't have the look, but because he was a technical wrestler at that time.
He's part of the Dangerous Alliance.
Alliance.
They was all mid-carders.
Think about it, Sting and Vader. Like that feud between Sting and Vader was a high impact feud for that short amount of time that Vader held the world title and Sting was chasing him, or he was chasing Sting. Like that rivalry, that rivalry was something you wanted to tune in to watch WCW. It was just like they didn't have any more rivalries. Like once Hogan got the belt, it was like, all right. We just gonna bring in old guys. We're gonna bring in guys that he used to fight to try to beat him. Since we messed up on the Sting rivalry. They was bringing in Roddy Piper, Ultimate Warrior. You know what I'm saying?
Jesus, yeah. It got, like I say, he held the WCW title. He just held it hostage. Yeah, too long, man. And they gave it to him too much, man. It was just. Oh my God! But there's also catering. They wanted, they was catering to Hogan. Hogan's the biggest thing, and they felt like they took Vince McMahon's trophy. So so it's basically, we got your man, guy. Now stick it. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna push him to the moon and keep him happy, so he won't go nowhere. So we ain't got to worry about that. Okay. So now as time go on, here comes Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. They're not agreeing with Vince, and then that's when things took a turn in life in WCW's life. Now let's go, into more future when you got NWO Wolfpack. See, that's what I'm saying. Now things are starting to get outrageous. Then you got the Finger Poker Doom. Okay. Then after that, you got the New Blood. Then you got the Millionaires Club. I like
the New Blood though. New Blood.
I like the New Blood too. They was okay. That storyline was okay.
Shane Douglas was all right with the New
WCW.
Blood.
It was cheesy, but one thing I like about Vince Russo,
he kept it real when he was coming at Hogan, yo.
Yeah, he did. And the thing is, too, Rock, when Vince Russo was booking, everybody had something to do.
Yeah.
Everybody was in a storyline. Yeah. Everything. Like the thing about Nitro, if you go back and look at 99 and 2000, it was a storyline here and storyline there. It was like 18 goddamn segments of storyline. It was cheesy, but it was cool.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It had some type of build to it. At least it had a build to it. Might have been a cheesy build.
Yeah,
but it had a build to it.
It makes sense. It was never out of place.
Vince Russo was there when we got the because think about it. Remember the ladder match DVD that WWE came out with, where it showed all the ladder matches. Remember 3 Count, the Young Dragons, and what was that the third team? But they all had a good triple threat ladder match that was,
Filthy Animals. Was it the Filthy Animals?
Yeah, Filthy Animals. During Vince Russo's time. So, he pushed a lot of young talent. Like
he did.
Yeah, the guys that at that time needed to be pushed. And then, when he left, that's when you seen the guys like Eddie, Rey Mysterio, Eddie, Dean Malenko, and them guys lead and become the Radicals and things. Yeah. And then the rest was history after that.
The rest was history.
Guys like Jericho was leaving.
Yep. And WCW, they put on the Lucha Libre style of wrestling. And if you look at WCW Nitro,
stole that from Paul Heyman.
Exactly. I agree with you. They sure did.
Yeah.
And that was always the opening match. It was always a lucha. But those guys were so over because they put on a hell of a show. Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Juventud Guerrero. I want to say Lash LaRue. He was in a
Billy Kidman with Bob. You just talking about luchadors, period.
It's just all cruiserweight.
That cruiserweight division. I remember, man. WCW NWO Revenge back on the Nintendo 64. That cruiserweight division was like
cruiserweight was nice. Rey Mysterio was that. It was on one. Eddie Guerrero, of course. So and you said Dean Malenko. That's what I like. Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holes. Dean Malenko.
Nice man.
Yeah, he beat your ass in all kind of moves and stuff, man. So yeah, you know, I really wish I know you guys heard this before we got here. Is I heard, and you guys probably heard this too, that Eric Bischoff wanted to make one last pay-per-view before he go out. It was called The Big Bang. It was going to be The Big Bang, and it was going to be a relaunch. And could you imagine that pay-per-view going down? Could you imagine that? Oh my God. And it be successful. I would still say WCW would have folded because Vince was just at that time. Real quick. Vince started with WCW. He started putting his foot in WCW's ass all the way with the Black Saturday. Like he was just all WCW, and then he finally bought the company. But my question to you guys is if WCW can get relaunched, right? Who you think should run it?
I'm gonna go ahead and jump T-Rock on this. There is no need for it to be relaunched because, to an extent, its spiritual successor is AEW. Just because of the fact that you had so many legacy WCW guys working both on screen and behind the scenes with that company, you know, from Tony Schiavone to Cody Rhodes pulling his dad's connections from Turner to help them get their TV deal. Just the way that they go about everything, you know, focusing on athleticism and more so reality-based storylines in WWE. I don't really know if there really would be a space for WCW in today's major wrestling market, just because you have, you know, the presence of AEW right now.
Good point, Mark. You know what? I didn't even think about it as I answered that question. I ain't thinking about it.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark on that because it's the same if they did like Who Killed ECW, something like that. Like AEW is all of those secondary promotions that couldn't beat Vince. It's in one promotion now in All Elite Wrestling. You know, like they're doing a different system with their rankings, and that's why a lot of their storylines kind of fail a little bit, where it's because they go by a ranking system. So the amount of matches you win gives you a chance to be in an eliminator qualifying match, where though you fight the champ in a one-on-one match. If you beat him, you get a title shot. So you know that I see how they are building to get people title shots in that promotion, and I see how, you know, they are faltering a little bit, like how WCW faltered, where so like they wasn't putting everybody in the forefront, like some of the new people that's coming in there. You know, they taking a step back to free agent signings from WWE or from different like TNA or ROH or Impact and things of that nature. But I mean, if WCW were to come back, you know, it's just hard for me to see it thriving because AEW is pretty much it.
AEW is it.
It's pretty much the second coming of WCW. It's just you know,
same field, like Mark said with Schiavone and
think about it.
Mark Madsen with what's the guy name with the mask on AEW?
Excalibur.
Yeah. So he sounded like Mark Madsen back in the damn day, man. So only thing that's missing was Bobby the Brain. Bobby the Brain was just everywhere he went. He was just
he forever be missed on the commentary.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man. Yeah, Bobby the Brain. Everywhere he
Hogan
went
was going to turn before everybody.
Everybody, man. He always had something.
He said, "How do you know he's?" He said, "How do you know he's here to help help them? How do you know he ain't with them?" And then he dropped the leg, dropped Randy Savage, yo.
That's what I'm saying.
Talk about a spoiler. That was a spoiler right there.
Bobby the Brain was the greatest. And he always called us
hated Hogan, and he was the first one who knew that man was going to turn heel.
You humanoids. He always called us a humanoid. Him and Gorilla Monsoon, man, was off the chain, man. Yeah. You know, You
I don't
know,
think we'll ever get a good
Chick-fil-A.
commentary like that now. I mean, yeah, because McAfee is off the wall with his. He
but
bring a
he's
different.
beginning to be annoying to me.
He bring a different feel
Yeah,
when
McAfee.
when he
Hell
did
no.
the ring announcing the other night for Samantha Irvin when Ricochet got put through the window shield. He did this. He did the ring announcing. That was it was alright. He brought a different feel to it. He brought a little bit too. He brought a little bit too realness to it.
Yeah. McAfee started getting annoying to me, bro.
You get a little bit.
He just a little bit too much, man. Especially when Braun Strowman come out. That's one big salad. Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah.
You still got kids in the house.
The big Scottish bastard.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. They starting to switch the programming up a little bit. Like, I don't mean to go off subject, but ain't no way in hell that spot with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio would have happened under the previous regime.
That's very true.
Oh yeah, not in the PG.
Yeah. Vince would have shut that down.
Nah, not in the PG era.
That was the beauty of ECW, because ECW used to go there.
Yeah,
it was more real. And
cat fights in ECW.
Word, ECW had the for real cat fights, the love story. Y'all remember the Raven thing with Sandman?
Yeah.
Holy
with his son.
Yeah, I used to because ECW's come on late, man. I remember watching that. I'm like, damn, this is some real shit. I used to watch it. It used to come on in Georgia. It used to come on 1:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, Sandman, this dude that took your girl, your wife, and your son. Raven was good like that, bro. He had my mind jacked up.
Talking to me, he was like, "Can you believe this? The man, Stone Cold Steve Austin, took the Sandman's gimmick and Mikey Whipwreck's finisher and became a Hall of Famer." Yo.
Now that's, if you want to talk about who killed WCW, that man, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
But it was deserved though. He deserved to put them out of business because how they fired him. Eric Bischoff didn't have the nerve to call him up. He sent him an answer. He sent him faxed him his papers and then called him on the answer machine and told him he was fired. Like, come on, man. And then that's karma for you.
Star. The biggest star to me, the biggest star in professional wrestling history, the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Like Hogan had his run, but Stone Cold sold that merch. I mean, them 316 shirts was all over the place. The stunner, he didn't even have to say nothing. He just stunned you, and the crowd would go crazy. He stunned you, and I remember, man, my friends, man, back in high school, man, we used to just wait on everybody just wait on the stunner. Who is he gonna get? Because he's gonna get somebody. Who is it?
You remember that? Remember that episode of Sunday Night Heat when Austin was terrorizing everybody?
Oh yeah,
coming out there beating up everybody.
Yeah, he stunned everybody. Yeah, he was that was the Greater Power gig, wasn't it? Greater Power.
Yeah, that's when he got he was trying to figure out who ran him over, so he was just taking that shit out on everybody.
Yeah, he stunned everybody. That's what I'm talking about. He dropped everybody, man. So I mean, if anybody want to say who killed WCW, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, but more Austin. Well, Austin really killed it, man. And he
was within his rights.
Yes, in his goddamn God-given rights, because he took out WCW, and but to me, it's up for grabs. It's a big, huge opinion. It's going to be forever a mystery in pro wrestling. Who took out the legendary World Championship Wrestling? Was it Eric Bischoff? Was it Hulk Hogan? Was it Vince Russo? Was it Ed Ferrara? Was it Ted Turner himself?
No, it was that organization, bro.
It was.
After watching this documentary, I am legitimately convinced it was the Turner Network organization that did it. Because if you watch it, they literally did everything humanly possible to sabotage and stop WCW. All the bad decisions that were made were results of Turner. So, yeah, I'm convinced now.
They were taking things away. You're right, Mark, because they were taking things away from Eric Bischoff that kept him on top, that kept him able to compete. So it's like, what if you cut? I mean, if you tie somebody's hand behind their back and tell them, hey, you just got to use this hand to do everything.
I remember that. I remember that. That was Austin versus McMahon, right? And then Dude Love came and interrupt. That was I didn't like Dude Love. I ain't like that character. I ain't like that shit. They was like tag team champions. He come out there.
My man, Dude Love.
Dukester. I ain't like that shit. It's cheesy as hell. Another WCW great, Cactus Jack.
Yeah, man.
Cactus Jack.
WCW legend. So I got a question. What's up with the trivia? I thought that was supposed to be tonight.
Oh, Philly G couldn't make it tonight.
Oh, okay.
We'll try again next week. Next Thursday it'll be hopefully Philly G versus Young Mark. Ooh, I can't wait to see that. Because Philly G is he's a wrestling mark too. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Wrestling Mark versus Wrestling Mark. It is what it is, man. We're going to get out of here, man. That is our show for today, man. We appreciate you guys for stopping by, man. We hope you enjoyed this show, man. We hope you enjoyed the show. We talked about who killed WCW. I know this show ain't all frantic like we normally is, you know what I'm saying? But if you want that, come back Saturday. Come back Saturday, man. We're going to talk about some sports. But again, man, that's our show for today, man. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember to give these two wrestling minds right here, these two men right here, a good thumbs up, man. Thumbs up. And if you want to rock with us, man, if you want to rock with us and continue to rock with us, hit that subscribe button. Turn on that bell for all notifications and follow us on all social media platforms. And follow our Facebook page, The Real Sports Podcast. All right, man. And speaking of that, man, we will be back Saturday with some NBA news and discussion, man. We're going to be basketball heavy, man. We're going to hit on the firing of Monty Williams. Oh, my God. What is the Pistons doing? They fired the man after one season. And we're going to talk about Game 5 and the new NBA champion, the Boston Celtics. So come pull up on us live right here on YouTube at 1:30.
AJ got hired by the Lakers.
See? Well, we got some stuff to talk about. You heard Rockstar Rock. We got some stuff to talk about, man. So come pull up live at 1:30 p.m. 1:30 p.m. right here on YouTube, right here on the Sports Podcast, man. And we want to hear your thoughts as well in the live chat. Me, myself, and on behalf of myself, Rockstar Rock, and Mr. Episode, everybody around the world, please be safe. Chico, everybody around the world, the bad guy, the Chico, please be safe and stay safe. And that's an order.
Peace out.